In this episode, we sit down with Jordan Adams, one half of the FTD brothers. At just 23 years old, Jordan had a terminal prognosis, and at this point, he could either live in misery or live every day like it was his last and embrace every single moment, and that is exactly what he's done. Last year, Jordan raised over £250,000 for Alzheimer's Research UK. The feats that he's gone to raise money for this charity is second to none. He's one of the most inspirational characters I've ever met. This episode is not to be missed. I hope you enjoy it. Jordan, thanks so much for joining me, mate. So you're one half of the FTD brothers. Would you mind just elaborating a little bit more on what the FTD is for and what that stands for?
Sure, yeah, thanks for having me, appreciate it. So I'm Jordan. FTD stands for Frontotemporal Dementia. And the reason we're called the FTD brothers is because frontotemporal dementia has completely devastated our family. We've inherited, myself and my younger brother Kian, have inherited a rare faulty genetic mutation that means we're going to get the exactly same dementia as our mum, my auntie, and 11 other of their relatives who have all lived with and died of that exact form of dementia.
Wow. So FTD is frontotemporal dementia, but what does that actually mean?
So for me, frontotemporal dementia has completely devastated our family, but where it's slightly different to most cases is in our family, it's familial. So I've inherited a rare MAPT genetic mutation, which means I'm going to inherit symptoms of dementia in my mid to late 40s from my mum. So my mum and 13 of her relatives have all lived with and died of the same frontotemporal dementia that's caused by faulty genetics.
Wow. I remember as well the research that I was doing, you found out that through IVF, that gene would not be inherited.
So through IVF, a process that they call genetic implantation diagnosis, they're basically able to identify in embryos at the earliest stage if they carry the genetic fault. So they're able to modify it so that you only try and get basically produce a baby that doesn't carry the faulty gene. So we have that option, but there's only a 30% chance of taking a happy, healthy baby home. Sadly, in 2023, in the February, the same week as my brother found out his genetic test result, my wife found out, me and my wife found out that she was pregnant unexpectedly, wasn't planned. And unfortunately, we had to go through a process of finding out whether the baby was a carrier of the genetic test. So what we initially thought we would be able to determine from a simple blood test at 9 weeks ended up going to 13 weeks where we had to have a different kind of test. And from there we found out the baby was carrier of the genetic fault, which made us have to make the toughest decision of our lives, whether to terminate a pregnancy or not. And we know that from an ethical standpoint, not everyone would agree with the decision we made, but the reason that we all got the genetic test as siblings was to stop this going any further. And we found it, the right decision was to sadly terminate that pregnancy. And I have to say that the grief of losing what would have been my first child has been probably the most difficult thing that I've ever had to go through. And in some ways, we almost got on with life so quickly with all the advocacy work that I've been doing and dealing with my brother's own diagnosis that I very much had to come to terms with it on just my own and with my wife, and at times it frayed our relationship. And this was obviously before we got married. We got married in July last year. So it's been a very, very difficult time, but I'm fortunate that I can say that, it's not something that I reflect on and, it's still very difficult to deal with, but I've moved on with my life, and I'm hoping that through IVF, with the positive options we have, that we're able to, create a family of our own one day. I'd love to be a dad, but, there'd be lots of people out there that would say that, in my situation, wanting to have kids is quite selfish, knowing that my wife is most likely going to have to parent on her own one day, and they're not going to live with a dad or a father figure in their life, because more than likely may have to see me as well, go through something like I had to with my mum and the trauma that's left me with. So I have to think about things from an early age now, about putting things in place from a care perspective to protect my children if I have them, from ever seeing me or having to take up those care responsibilities that I had to. Just from a dignity perspective as well, I don't want to have to, my kids to be hands-on in that situation. And another thing that I'd add to it as well is that I've had to have conversations, obviously, about mortality in my 20s, which is crazy, but I've also had to have conversations with my dad about possibility of, end-of-life care, but also euthanasia as well. That's something that we've chatted about, because the quality of life that my mum had in the last 18 months to 24 months of her life was, you wouldn't wish it on anybody. She was literally in a vegetative state in our living room. It wasn't my mum anymore, and it was extremely difficult to watch. And I've had people ask me, would you ever consider that option? It's not legal in this country. There are people that seek avenues to end their life. And it's something that I have to think about seriously, because you're having an impact on the people that you love most, and how do you want to be remembered? But in a selfish way, I've actually had this conversation with my dad, and I almost want to go the whole distance with the disease. And the problem was, when we cared for my mum, we gave her such great care that she went the whole distance, and we saw the real wicked part and the end parts of the disease. And as I say, that time where she was literally had no quality of life. But I look at the impact that that's had on myself, my siblings, my dad, and is that something that I want for my own children? It's something that's really difficult. So it's another reason why I want to be able to create financial freedom and a life where I can put things in place so that my kids don't have to take on that care. They don't have to care for me in that end of life stage where there's things that I can't take out of my mind, and pictures of my mum, in that stage that I wish I never had to see. So I don't want that for my kids. So yeah, there's all these conscious decisions I have to make.
The fact that you've got to think about that in your 20s is absolutely mind-blowing. And again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but the way that you are able to articulate your words and talk about these things, and your mindset around it, your perspective, I take my hat off to you, mate, because a lot of people wouldn't be able to talk about it the way you talk about it, in such a negative thing. You talk about it in such a positive way, with turning such a negative thing into such a positive, with all this, fundraising you've been doing, all these amazing, incredible things that you continue to do. That's just a testament to the character that you've got and who you are as a person, and your brother. And again, what's happened, again, like you said earlier, has turned you into the person that you are. But also the comment that you made about, is it ethical to have kids, knowing that what could potentially happen? I think it's your life and you've got to do whatever you want to do, but you have also experienced that in the past, so you know what you can do moving forward to make sure that your kids have the best possible outcome. And I think that's incredible. You've learned from such an awful experience, and you now can learn and put that into action. So when you do have kids, they don't have to experience the same things that you did.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that obviously I touched on earlier is legacy. And I think I almost want my children to be my legacy. And that's something that I speak about with my sister a lot, is even if I'm not here and people will think, oh, that's so selfish, that they're going to have to live a large majority of their life without their dad. But if I can be this person that can be this role model that they can look back on and see everything that I achieved despite everything that I went through, then even though I won't be here, I think that will be hugely valuable to them in their lives, and hopefully something that they're able to look back on with a lot of pride. And that's probably why I look at it and still want children, because I think out of all of this, all the hardship and the trauma that I've been through, creating that legacy and bringing a child or children into the world, knowing that I stopped them from being in the same circumstances as me, is something that I hope to be hugely proud of.
Just a quick one. Most of you watching this episode aren't yet subscribed. So if you want your weekly motivation from some incredible guests, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn your notifications on.
The genetic testing wasn't something we were even aware of until kind of the back end of mum living with the disease. So having to live with kind of losing mum, watching her be stripped of everything, and the wickedness of kind of the back end of the disease, and seeing her have literally no quality of life, to then learning that we could be in that position one day was extremely difficult to navigate. And I always say, for long periods of time, the choice to have a genetic test wasn't one that I even wanted to talk about. I kind of put it in a box, ignored it, and just wanted to get on with like my late teenage life. And to be honest, to my own detriment, because I became quite an angry young man, abused my relationship with alcohol, got into a lot of trouble out on weekends, caused my dad a lot of unnecessary stress and worry at a time when ultimately he was looking after my mum as like a palliative care sense, end of life care. So that wasn't fair. So I caused a lot of damage to the people around me, which is something that I do regret, but I also think that it was kind of understandable at the time with how much I was going through. And really, my decision to get genetic testing changed when I saw my sister get a positive result. So my sister's 2 years older than me. She was always adamant with the fact that she shared so many characteristics with my mum in terms of the way she looked, her dark hair, that kind of strong Irish look that she's got about her. And she was convinced that she was going to get it like my mum. So she was always adamant that she wanted to find out. And in spring of 2018, she found out that she wasn't a carrier. So she's got the same chance as anyone of inheriting a form of Alzheimer's or dementia. And that really, my mum was diagnosed in June 2010. And this was 2018. In that 8-year period, this was probably the first bit of good news that we'd had as a family. So it completely changed my thoughts on getting genetically tested. And I thought, that could be my circumstances. I could really move on with my life. It could be, the end of this kind of never-ending nightmare that we were living in. So I then decided at the back end of that to start my process with getting genetically tested. And I actually found out in September of 2018 that I was a carrier. Wow.
And how old were you when you decided to go for the test?
I was 23 years of age when I found out. So still young, still navigating my way in the world, and still really dealing with the grief of my mum's passing,
When prior to that was it that your mum sadly passed?
So my mum passed away in March 2016 at the age of 52. So she was diagnosed in 2010 at the age of 47, and she'd been showing symptoms of FTD for probably 18 months, 2 years prior to that. And as I say, she's not the only one in our family who's lived with the disease. They've all inherited symptoms in their mid to late 40s, and most of them haven't made it much past 50. So, I know you should be grateful for every day, but 50 is no age to lose your life, and particularly in the way that FTD can strip you of literally everything that makes you who you are. That's how I usually describe it to people. Imagine somebody that you really care about, so well, you love them so much. Imagine watching them be stripped of literally everything that makes them who they are on a daily basis. And that's what happened over a 6-year period between 2010 and 2016. In the last 2 years of my mum's life, she had to be fed through a tube. She couldn't walk or talk, and it was up to myself mainly, alongside my dad, to take up responsibility to care for my mum. So that was taking her to the toilet. I often say that to most people when I have these conversations, is that at a time where my mates were going out, enjoying nights out for the first time, enjoying their youth, I was at home wiping my mum's ass. And that's as brutally and as plainly as I can put it. Those are the type of tasks I was having to take up. And that's still something very traumatic that I still have to live with now. That's when I think about the toughest things that I've been through, even though finding out my genetic status and knowing that I'm too going to have to live with dementia, one of the hardest things I've had to deal with is when I have to think about that traumatic time and watching my mum go through those types of things and having to deliver that hands-on care. Something that was extremely difficult.
I can imagine, mate. And I think you mentioned earlier about you put your dad through a little bit of a difficult time with some of the actions, but I think based on what you've just said, it's understandable the trauma that you've experienced and what you had to deal with going through that next part of your life. Not everybody, but you're going to go through that period of frustration and anger and, why me? But from that, just having a conversation on the way here, just talking about the mindset, you know, you can see how everything has transitioned. And I always say, like, life happens for you and not to you. And I can see how that has transitioned for you, just through having just a very small conversation and everything that you've said, and just been sat here now and then going into everything that you've done recently. I think it's incredible how you've overcome adversity and then transitioned to where you are and what you're doing and what you stand for and the mindset. And the thing that I absolutely loved the most when I was doing my research on yourself for this podcast was your perspective on life changed significantly the day you found out that you had the same genes. And you said something so thought-provoking that it nearly brought a tear to my eye. When you said life, when you realise you've only got a finite amount of time on this world, you want to start doing more fulfilling things in life. And I just want you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because I think it's incredible, that perspective and that mindset.
Sure, yeah. I think it's important to mention that the genetic testing process is something that's extremely difficult to go through. You know, it's you know, it gives you sleepless nights, and you kind of have to be ready to accept that your fate, you know, is ultimately going to be something very difficult to face. But it's quite strange, actually. The one overwhelming emotion I describe to people that I felt once I got delivered that result was one of relief, because it finally gave me, I guess, a new chapter in my life to move on. And I don't know whether it would work the same for everyone. It probably wouldn't, but I always often describe it as giving me a license to live. It's really given me a massive perspective in terms of life is so short. None of us know what's around the corner. And just because I've been given this genetic test result, and it's more than likely out of anything I'm going to lose my life to frontotemporal dementia, but what's to say that I'll walk out the door tomorrow and I don't lose my life in a different way? And that's why, you know, I say it, and one of my videos that did quite well actually on socials was, time is the most precious commodity that we possess. You know, it's something that we all take for granted. And that's why I always try and stress to people about expressing gratitude. I don't feel like you can truly be unhappy if you really sit here, and it sounds so floaty and so like hippie, because I'm not really that kind of guy, but if you can literally just like feel your own fingertips, you can breathe, you can go outside, feel the fresh air on your skin, you can walk, you can talk to people, have these conversations, makes you realise, you know, how important every minute is, and that we all take so many of kind of those given things for granted when they're not. They're not. None of us know what's around the corner. So many things can change in an instant, and I think it's important in that sense that I reflected even after some of the crazy challenges that I've done. I think it's made me sit back and realise, what do I want with my life? What am I getting the most out of the time that I've got? And that's why that I've made a leap of faith in the last kind of few weeks after reflecting, after what a huge year in 2024 of fundraising and kind of giving my whole life to kind of raising awareness and money towards a cause so close to our hearts, that I've realised that I want more from life. I could easily sit and have this comfortable life in terms of I've been through a hell of a lot and I've got a hell of a lot in front of me that's going to be difficult. But I actually want to test myself. I want to see how much I can get out of the time that I've got here and try and create a life that's going to improve my own time here, but also my family's as well. That's huge for me. So trying to set up my own kind of online business based around helping other people and giving something back, but quite similar to yourself, I guess, in terms of using my own life experiences to help other people in a similar position, you know. And I look back at it, and even when I've carried weight or been suffering from depression, sadly, it's been myself, probably pronged with, you know, a good support network of family and friends, but it's been mainly myself who's had to drag myself out of those situations. And I feel very fortunate to sit here and say that, because, you know, not everybody is in that position to do that.
How do you find that you did that? Because I've been in that place where depressed and, you know, not really wanting to be here. And I had my way of dealing with it. But again, there's a lot of people that will be listening to this that might be in that place right now. For somebody that is a similar age to me and very similar in mindset and everything like that, how did you pull yourself out of that place?
I was very fortunate in the sense that I had a great relationship with my mum. And a lot of my pain has come from losing my mum and knowing that I'm going to live with the same disease as what she went through. And deep down, when I came to probably my lowest point, when I feel like I didn't want to be here anymore, being brutally honest, I thought about my mum and I thought, what would she think looking down at you now? What would she want from you, from your life? And I know she would be so upset if she thought that I didn't want to go on or live any sort of life. Then I look at it again now and I think of all the things we've achieved since I made a decision to wake up every day and try and live a more fulfilled life. And that hasn't come overnight, you know, that's building gradual habits into my daily life that will work for me. And going round in a cycle at times. I still, to this day, have periods of time of low mood and spiral into kind of a depression still, I guess, if I'm being brutally honest. But I've, over time, been able to implement habits that I can refer back to that I know will help get me out of that. So like we spoke about, seeking gratitude, journaling's one that's always kind of helped me, whether it be kind of just a brain dump of how I feel at that time or kind of documenting different moments of time, things I've achieved. And then later on when you feel in a certain way or you feel low, you can reflect on those moments and think, wow, look what you did, or look where you were and look where you are now. And being self-reflective and very self-aware of how I feel. But yes, I'm constantly still learning about myself to this day. I'll never have the perfect kind of remedy. And I'm certainly wouldn't say I'm cured from depression or anything like that. It's just something that over time I build daily habits that I know I can refer back to. And yeah, staying consistent with those, I guess, and trying to live as best I can.
I love those habits that you've just mentioned. Gratitude is something I speak so often about, and I love the sensation there of just feeling your fingers and just being present in the moment. But the journaling and the reflection, because I'm sure you'll agree, you find that a lot of people struggle with their mental health because they're constantly seeking validation or gratification in the future.
Yeah, exterior factors.
Yeah, things in the, I always say, if you constantly find yourself saying, oh, when I've got that job, I'll be happy, or when I've got that in the future, I'll be happy, or when I get there, I'll be happy, then you'll never be happy where you are right now. And for me, self-reflection and celebrating your achievements is a great way of looking back and being fulfilled and grateful for what you've done and where you are right now. Still having the drive and the determination to want to move forward, but still sitting and reflecting and being fulfilled and being present and being happy with where you are right now. But you only really get that from implementing those habits, you know, from journaling, from writing down things that you're grateful for, celebrating those achievements. And I think something that I do with my clients is I will kindly drill that into them. Yep. And especially, like you said, on a day when you can really in a bad place, if you can force gratitude, if you can really force it and think to yourself, do I have a roof over my head? Yes. Do I have my health? Yes. Do I have clean water? Do I have my missus? Do I have my brother? Yes. Then what the fuck are you so unhappy about?
Yeah,
I think,
definitely.
and I love how you've just explained those.
Sure, and I think to double down on that, I think where I've gone on to probably go to probably add to that to help myself in other ways is when I found that I can't force that gratitude. Instead of forcing that gratitude, I force myself to do kind of the uncomfortable things, whether that be like cold water therapy.
You're kind of that,
yeah. I mean, it's not something that I can't sit here and say I'm consistent with it, but every now and then I'm like, okay.
I thought you were going to say, I really enjoy it. And I was like, don't think anybody enjoys it.
I'm not at that stage. I mean, there are some people who say they do.
I don't think anyone does.
But it's definitely one of those, like, we went away to Spain over the Christmas, New Year period, and we made sure we went in the sea every day. And it's like, it was freezing cold, but making sure you go in there, and we were in there for like 10 minutes, and then you come out and you're so much more grateful for like the small things like that bit of warmth when you get into the hotel, having a hot shower or your morning coffee. It makes you appreciate all the little things in your life. So that's another way that I kind of try and force that kind of sense of gratitude by
doing the hard things.
Ways. Yeah, doing the hard things. And like I think you mentioned on one of your previous episodes about on days where you get up and you're lacking motivation, if you can't do the thing that you set out to do, just do something that you can do in that moment, like going for that walk. That's something that I'm trying to set realistic goals in terms of, you know, I'd love to get back into a really good regime at the gym, but there's some days where you wake up and you feel like, you know what, I don't want to go today, but if you can get out of the house and just walk for 10, I always say apply the 10-minute rule. So I'll go out and I'll walk or I'll run 10 minutes away from a house in a certain direction. And if I don't feel up to it, I'll turn straight back around and come back, and all of a sudden I've done 20 minutes of exercise that I'd never have done, you know, by staying in the house or whatever, and reflecting on how I feel. So yeah, it's definitely different ways, kind of a two-pronged approach of applying those kind of the gratitude and the journaling, but also trying to do those physical hard things like the cold water therapy and getting out and exercising that help.
Definitely, and there always seems to be a common theme among a lot of the guests that I have on this podcast, and a lot of people I speak to, is that it's habits, mindset, doing the hard things. And I say to a lot of people that I work with and people that may ask for advice, and I would ask, what is it that you've done today? You know, what is it you've done this week? You know, have you tried to push yourself out your comfort zone? I've not really done anything. And then it goes back to like setting realistic expectations of what you can do throughout a day. Like if you have never set foot in front of a gym, then don't set yourself the realistic expectation of being able to go 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Just start small and build up, control the controllables, but actually do something.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And it's probably quite controversial of me to say, but I believe that if you are in a difficult place and you are struggling with your mental health, there is always something that you can do. And it might not have to be go run 5 miles, but like you said, you can still run, you can still walk 10 minutes.
Definitely. And I think, like you say, it's about having those realistic goals and ambitions, because I often think about, you know, people who, it's a new year, new me kind of case scenario, and they've gone from, I don't know, they might have daily steps where they have 4,000 steps in a day, and then all of a sudden they want to hit 10K, 15K steps a day. And I always think, by the end of January, you're not going to stick to that. You may as well just say, okay, I'm going to commit to an extra 2,000 steps each day, an extra 10, 20 minutes of walking or whatever it is. And by setting those realistic goals, you're giving yourself a platform to actually achieve something. And most of us get such a euphoria from those little achievements, and then from there, we're able to kick on and exceed, you know, our ambitions and our goals and set new ones. And it's just about, giving yourself a little bit more of a chance, I guess, to succeed.
I think a great example is, for me this week, like I've always gone to the gym. There's never been a period I haven't gone. But like most people, I didn't get to the gym, not as much as I'd like, but just as much as I normally would over Christmas. And I've come back this week and I wanted to go do all the different workouts, and then I wanted to do 20 minutes on the Stairmaster. And I got to the end of the first workout, I was like, fuck, can't be arsed.
Yeah.
So I thought I should do 10 minutes. So I got on, I thought, can I do 10 minutes? Did 10 minutes. Next day, I did 15 minutes. Then went yesterday, 20 minutes. It's like if you set yourself smaller goals and then build up, you'll know more than anybody with running. When you started doing the running after all the adversity that you'd had, you didn't set out to do a marathon in your first month, did you?
No, not at all. No, you got to start somewhere. And I think it's about, again, that reflection of knowing that and understanding that along the way, when we set ourselves goals, there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be days where you don't achieve what you want to do. But again, I think that's where I bring journaling into my life as well. I will document those setbacks and how I feel. Why did that happen? Why did I not achieve today what I wanted to do? What did I actually do? How did I feel about that? And just being a little bit more forgiving with yourself. You know, when I look back at the progress that I've made, I didn't go, you know, from feeling depressed to running a length for UK overnight. You know, it's been over like a 6 to 8 year period of believing in myself, being kind to myself, implementing these daily habits that can benefit my life. And from there, I've just gone from strength to strength. And I'm a firm believer that the only person who can really change your life is you. It has to start with you. You can get accountability, which people need from other people, but you are the one who has to practice those daily habits and really implement change in your life. But that doesn't have to be drastic change. It can be small steps over a long period of time. And in my eyes, that makes it far more sustainable as well. How
do you find social media plays a part in that? In terms of, I always see social media and the people on there, it's the very tip of the iceberg. And I use Tom Talks as an example. It was only really last year that my social channels seemed to take off and I started getting more and more bookings, but I'd been doing it since 2019.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important message for anybody listening. Like yourself, you've done all these amazing challenges and you've raised all this money and you're doing really well with everything that you're doing, but it didn't just happen overnight. Whereas on your social media, I'm sure you're very open and honest about the journey, but somebody from face value coming on and looking like, fucking hell, this guy's doing well.
That's it, yeah. And I think it's easy, and still now, you know, I think people think, he's quit his job, he must be making a living. I'm taking a huge risk, you know, I'm going out of my comfort zone to try and ultimately make it my full-time work, but I've had to make huge sacrifices over the last 6 years in particular. You know, my running journey started back in like 2018, where I completed like my first 10K, went to then half marathon, and then I didn't run my first marathon until 2020. And then from there, I've been able to, by being associated with my charity work and raise money whilst I run, I've then been able to build up to running 28 back-to-back ultra marathons and running the entire length of the UK. And we've been able to raise a lot of money along the way with the kind of the awareness messaging and stuff. But I've had to stay so consistent in that period, and really, you know, you kind of ask yourself a lot of questions, and there's a lot of self-doubt in those periods of time. You know, am I doing the right thing? It's not paying off. Is it time to give up, go in a different direction? And it's only now where people are probably seeing me across socials thinking, oh, well, he's got lucky, or he's done this kind of thing. But there's been a lot of hard work and a lot going into the back end of it to get to me where I am now. And it's kind of that conversation we had earlier about not being satisfied and not being happy. Like, really, when I reflect on it now and thinking about it, like, I've come so far in that period, and that's something that I should be hugely proud of. But I think just as human beings, we're never really satisfied. We always want more.
You're always, the goalposts always changing.
That's it. And that's not to say that I'm not happy with where I am now, but like all of us, I've set goals for this year. But I think where I differentiate to other people is that I'm very aware that life can change, and you have to be ready to adapt in the course of time. That come the end of 2025, even though I had those goals, my life might have changed in a way that none of them are relevant anymore, or I might be chasing something else. So it's about, again, just trying to go with the flow at times and see what happens. But yeah, I think there's definitely people out there who probably don't understand that the hard work and the labour of love you've put into it, you know, over time.
I always say, like, I've had people in the past, I was lucky. I'm like, the harder you work, the more opportunities you get, the luckier you get. But a question I've got for you is, based on what you've just said about, and it's something, somebody asked me the same question, and it really was really thought-provoking, and it really made me feel immense gratitude for where I am right now. So how old were you again when you found out you had the genetic?
23 when I found out, yeah.
So when you were 23, if somebody had told you at 23 that you'd be where you are now at 29, what would you say? Yeah,
I wouldn't believe them. You know, it's unbelievable. You know, just away from even the things that I'm trying to do, you know, from a personal point of view, the impact I've had on so many, well, we've had, me and my brother and my family as a whole, and everybody supporting us in our little kind of FTD brothers community, where we're at now, the impact we've had on people's lives in the dementia space, and the awareness and the conversation we've created over a period of time. And I think where it really hits home is the amount of messages that I get off people who are in a similar situation, who have lost a parent to FTD or another type of dementia, and they've got questions for me that I can actually answer, and I know that I'm helping them, or I can point them in the right direction. And I think that's why, again, I've reflected kind of in the last few months about what I want to do in life, because I get the most joy in life from helping other people. Genuinely, I don't think there's any better feeling. You might
I agree.
The same in terms of using my own life experiences and that adversity that I've been through, and showing people that you can overcome it and come through the other side and live a really fulfilling life. It is something that I get so much joy from, being able to help other people or offer them some comfort, particularly with dementia. I feel like you get in a position where you feel so isolated, and you almost feel like you're the only person in the world going through it. And it can feel like that in lots of different scenarios, whether people are struggling with anxiety, depression, you know, those kind of mental health issues that so many people suffer with. It's nice sometimes just to be an ear for someone to tell you to offload and or share your own experience, so they can feel like, oh my God, I'm not the only person in the world who's feeling like this. And I get so much back from that it's completely, opened my eyes to think, you know what, I want to do something where I wake up every day and I have that kind of impact on people's lives every day, and get that bit back as well from it.
I love that. That was a very similar experience for me in terms of the one-to-one coaching that I started. I was getting a lot of messages off people, sadly explaining that they were struggling with their mental health, and then asking for advice on how to improve it. And there was only so much that I could give that person on a message.
Sure.
So how can I implement more and more of this? We're still having an impact and serving these people. And I thought one-to-one coaching, I'd been looking at life coaching and, different areas within that space. And I thought, if I can pass everything that's worked for me on to other people as a coach, and then these people constantly asking me for advice, which is great and I love it, I can channel it in the right way. And it sounds very similar to you now with the next part of your journey and the part of your life that you're going to go into.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm just in a situation now where I want to make it my life's work, and I genuinely want to free up more time for myself and give myself more freedom to be an advocate. As selfish as it may sound, the one thing that a key word for me has always been legacy and being remembered. And I think that's quite a selfish thing. It almost sounds like I've got a big ego, and I haven't. It's just, I want people to know long after we're gone that we had a kind of a life-changing impact and a world-changing impact on the world of dementia. And because we had a choice when we got this genetic test result to go through one or two doors, we could have kind of slumped, had that kind of victim mentality, which I understand happens to people. It's not easy to get out of, but we had the choice to have a serious impact on the world using our voice and our experiences. And I'm glad to say that we've done that, and the impact we've had already is incredible. But I've just got this vision of being able to be part of a movement that does find a cure for dementia and raising tens of millions of pounds. And I'm not just on about whilst we're here, I want to create something, whether it be through a foundation or just an online community after we're gone, that people can still fundraise for or still get help from if they're in the dementia space. And as I say, kind of the work can live on long after we're here and create that kind of legacy from our story. And
ego or not, it would be fucking cool to look back and think, yeah, I did that.
I think so, more for my family as well. Like, that's something that I really, really want for them. If they can still, after we're gone, be part of something that almost it immortalises us. It keeps us and our story alive forever. Because a lot of the things that we do is about keeping my mum's story alive and keeping her relevant and talked about. Because I'd hate to think that, people don't talk about her anymore, or we don't get to hear stories from other people about the type of person she was and things like that. So it's kind of keeping her flame alive, along with all of my other relatives who have lost their lives to FTD. And I want something similar for us.
What was she like, your mum?
Just a vivacious, bubbly character. Loved her 80s music, and then as time moved on, she loved her R&B, which for this Irish lady with you wouldn't really think that from her. She used to love a boogie in the kitchen, being out with the girls, socialising. I mean, to kind of describe what she was like to people who will be watching this, is she got the nickname at my school Mother Christmas, because she'd go in every Christmas and give either a bottle of wine or a box of chocolates to literally every teacher in the school. Whether they're taught us or not, they got a gift. So they used to worship the ground she walked on, because she just liked people to like her, and she liked to talk to people and help them any way she can. And that's, I think, reflected in my brother and my sister, and hopefully in me as well, and everything that we stand for and what we're trying to do. And we're very fortunate that we've had such a great upbringing by both my parents that it stood us in good stead. You
can see it's definitely been reflected, mate.
Cheers.
100%. And your mum sounds like she was an amazing lady.
Yeah, very, very proud she'd be as well. So that's always nice to know.
I can imagine, mate. I can imagine there's been hundreds of people that have told you the same and sent you lovely messages saying she'd be proud of you. I think that just reading the things that you've achieved, phenomenal. And I just wanted to go into a little bit about all these crazy challenges that you've done. And I think the more recent one was the whole length of England that you ran. Was it
903 miles. So we ran from the most northerly part of the UK, which is John O'Groats. In a month, we ran all the way down to Land's End in Cornwall. So myself and my brother, who obviously also shares the same diagnosis, and a family friend, Nigel, who's actually 68 years of age.
Wow.
But massive ultra runner, massive support to our family. He ran it with us as well. And we ran the first 28 days, we ran back-to-back ultra marathons. So that's anything over 50 kilometres. So navigating like the Scottish Highlands and all the terrain and the kind of microclimate that you experience, you know, you run a mile up the road and it's glorious sunshine, and then all of a sudden you've got like rain, torrential in your face, like freezing cold. So navigating all that sort of stuff and injuries as we went, but the support that we had throughout literally Scotland, England, we couldn't have had it better. It was absolutely phenomenal. We met so many great people along the way who have supported us, and people who are living with the experience of dementia themselves, and we're so grateful for what we're doing. And it was that really pushed home the impact that we're having, and, you know, to say that we ran the length of the UK. And now after, you know, completing 2024, we raised over £250,000 without gift aid. With gift aid, I think it was £306,000 towards research that can hopefully find a cure for all types of dementia. You know, that's something that we may never be able to say again. You know, we've got aspirations to hopefully raise £1 million in our lifetime. That's something that we'd like to do. But yeah, just incredible. And my journey, as I say, started in 2018 with running, getting into running a half marathon around Birmingham. I'd done kind of little bits of running before that, probably a 5K was most that I'd done, and then chucked myself in for a half marathon running for Dementia UK. And from there I just caught the bug and ran my first marathon in 2018 around my hometown, because in 2020, sorry, I ran my first marathon around my hometown when COVID struck, and then ran London the following year, and then followed that up a year later by running 7 marathons in 7 days. So I ran from my hometown in Redditch down, and then from Birmingham to London down the Grand Union Canal, finishing with my 7th marathon on the Sunday in London. And then it obviously, once my brother got his diagnosis, it was kind of, what can we do? How can we take this to kind of the next level? My brother always says we kind of, before that, we'd rinsed our hometown of Redditch for like support and donations. We kind of wanted to take it to this next level. And not just from a fundraising perspective, we wanted to, you know, get that message out there in a wider sense, and kind of represent the widespread prevalence of dementia in the UK. And there seemed no better challenge to just do that by running from top to bottom. So
what was the amount of time that from one end to the other? How long was that?
We set it off on the 1st of September and we finished on the 1st of October. So it's 31 days of running. I'd say 28 days of that were back-to-back ultras, and then we kind of reduced the distance on the last couple, tapered down on the last couple of days.
Surprised.
Yeah, finished, I think the last day was just over half a marathon. So yeah, it was an amazing journey, met so many great people, and obviously the amount of money that we raised was absolutely incredible. So it's been a life-changing year.
Yeah. I take my hat off to you, mate. I think it's absolutely incredible what you've done, and yeah, I think your mum would be extremely proud. I've only known you, well, obviously spoke briefly on Instagram, but you can see that you've achieved great things, but you can see that there's some very special things in the future for you. I'm excited to see what is to come for yourself and your brother. I think it's going to be incredible.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So you're raising money for the Alzheimer's
Research UK.
Alzheimer's Research UK. Can you just tell us a little bit more on how you can donate, where you can donate?
Sure, yeah. So you can go to www.justgiving.com/the FTD brothers. Our page is still open for donations. We appreciate if you can give generously. That's massive. If you're not in a position to give, then simply follow along on socials at the FTD brothers. We're constantly trying to raise awareness, and your support will be greatly appreciated.
And we'll put a link in the description on YouTube and Spotify for people to donate. Awesome. Anything we can do to help, mate. I've got one last question for you, mate. If you could go back to 23-year-old Jordan, the day that you found out that you'd got this gene the same as your mum, if you could say anything to that 23-year-old Jordan, what would you say to him?
It's a hard one, because I can, as like we said before, I can never really imagine the position that I've got myself into. But it'd be along the lines of don't let a diagnosis rule your life. You know, there's so much more to get out of life. That this is just a reminder to live an even more fulfilled life than you're living. And kind of my mantra for 2025 and beyond, and what I'd spread to other people, is do the thing. We all spend so much time talking about doing the thing, thinking about doing the thing, and we never actually do the thing. And my mantra for 2025 is do the thing. You know, I've been talking about setting up an online business and doing something for myself and trying to create more freedom so I can do advocacy full time and really change the world for in the future for dementia and what a diagnosis means. And I've finally taken action in that now. And that's going to be my mantra from now on. You know, life is far too short not to do the thing. So that is why I stress to people, do the thing.
Do the thing. I love it. But how many, that is such an important message, because how many people say they're going to do something, start a business, go traveling, and all it ever is just a conversation. There's never any action. And I think your story, your journey is the reason why you should do the thing. And I always think you can always, not everybody, but you can always meet a certain person, you know that there's been some form of trauma, because the perspective on life is always as it is with yourself. And I always say it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something happens, negative, something out of your control.
100%. I think the way that's reflected in my life is when I do these physical challenges or I make these leaps of doing something that ultimately does scare me. You know, I've making a huge financial risk. I've got no regular income to try and transition to what I want to do. But to me, that I've already been through the toughest, hardest things in my life. You know, if I can achieve the things that I have done in terms of going from being, you know, not very healthy, not very fit, overweight, depressed, to being somebody who can say I've changed people's lives in terms of inspired people. We've raised over £250,000 in one calendar year, and I'm probably in the healthiest, fittest shape of my life. Why can't I apply that to other parts of my life as well? So I think once you've been through that, there's kind of nothing that really phases you. Yeah. But still, I have been in that situation where I kind of procrastinate and say I'm going to do the thing. So this year has been the year that I'm taking action and actually doing something about it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the great things as well along my journey is I've met so many other people who have been through so many difficult things. And they all share that same perspective on life that, you know, you've got to do what you can while you can, you know, and get the most out of life. And like you say, I think you hear lots of people who probably haven't shared those experiences and they moan about the most trivial things. And it really puts, you know, when you've got the perspective that we have, I think it almost makes you laugh when, I mean, me and my brother got delayed at Dublin Airport for 9 hours on Monday. And there were people getting all up in the airport staff's face, and you're thinking, like, why is what it, like you say, it is what it is. You can't change it. Why be unhappy about it? Yeah. But yeah, I think it definitely sheds a new perspective on life and what it means. So.
Definitely, and it's even like the way that like you just said, people getting up in people's faces in the airport. Like, I always think in this sort of situation, what is it going to matter in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
Then it doesn't matter right now. And it's like driving, like I do a lot of driving with my other business. And I remember when I was younger, after my brother had died, I felt like I had all this pent up anger and like driving around, like somebody would cut you up, you beat
road rage, yeah.
Now if someone cuts me up, I'm just like,
right, yeah.
It's not going to matter in 5 years' time. And I think if you know, don't get me wrong, it's hard to adapt that mindset. But I think in life, if you have a mindset of whatever's happened in the past has happened and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it, the only thing that you can do is worry about what you're doing right this second in this moment and control the controllables and take the positive actions and the necessary things that you need to do moving forward that will have a positive impact on not only you but the people around you. Your life will just be so much better.
Yeah, it will transform, literally. You know, you feel so much better about yourself and you'll see life from literally a different perspective totally.
Definitely.
And yeah, I can't stress that more, you know.
Definitely, man. I'm so excited to see your journey this year, your brother's journey, the FTD brothers, and yeah, it's inevitable that you're going to have so much success this year. I really appreciate you coming up and coming on the podcast, mate.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's great to chat to you. So thank you.
Thank you, man.
Top man.
Top man.